Welcome to the Patriot League's 4th annual Pillar Project event. My name is Anthony Gallegos, and I'll be serving as your MC this morning. Religious leaders have gathered here today to call on their governing officials to defend principles of importance to them. The principles of traditional marriage, parental rights, religious liberty, and the humanity of the unborn. From the viewpoint of these leaders, are pillars of indispensable support for the welfare of society. They're moral truths that predate government itself. Although these leaders do not share a unity of faith or even necessarily agree on who's going to heaven and who's not, as the heads of their respective assemblies, they stand in solidarity for the defense of these pillars. In total, these leaders actively lead over 167,000 Colorado citizens from 42 Colorado cities and towns. These leaders are African American, Arabic, Brazilian, Hispanic, Irish, Italian, Jewish, Native American, Polish, and Vietnamese, among others, and have committed to stand together to call on their governing officials to defend the pillar principles. These leaders are physically represented this morning, either by their attendance here today or through their signed pillar letter, which is on display at the Pillar Letter Showcase behind the seating area. If you haven't done so already, we encourage you to visit the showcase and reference your event program, which also provides additional information. At this time, we'd like to recognize the following members of the Colorado Legislature who are here with us today, each of whom has been rated by the Patriot League as a defender of the pillar principles. Legislators, as I read your names, please stand so we can recognize you, and remain standing until all of the legislators have been recognized. And audience, if I could ask you to hold your applause until everyone has been recognized. Representative Susan Beckman. Senate Majority Whip John Cooke. Representative Polly Lawrence. Representative Tim Leonard. House Minority Leader Patrick Neville. Senator Tim Neville. Representative Kim Ransom. Representative Shane Sandridge. And House Assistant Minority Leader Cole Wist. We also have former State Representative Joanne Winholtz is here with us today. There we go. Thank you. All right. Big Martin? Vicki Martin? And Senator Vicki Martin. Thank you. And it looks like I missed Senator Vicki Martin. Thank you. Is there anybody else that is here present that I might have missed? Very well. Feel free to go ahead and take a seat. In addition to the legislators present this morning, we'd like to pass along regards from the following legislators who are unable to be with us. That is House Minority Whip Perry Buck, Senator Larry Crowder, Senate Majority Leader Chris Holbert, Senator Kent Lambert, Representative Larry Liston, Representative Kimmy Lewis, Representative Paul Lundeen, Representative Lang Sias, and Representative Yulin Willett. So we express our appreciation to these legislators for being pillar defenders, standing courageously for these principles here at the Colorado State Capitol. With those introductions completed, I'd like to invite the Sankey sisters to the stage. They'll be singing a medley of America the Beautiful. Please help me in welcoming the Sankey sisters.
spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited God shed His grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. God bless America. Land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean. Why will fall? God bless America. God bless America. My home, sweet America, America, God shed His grace on thee and crown thy good brotherhood from sea to shining
Sisters, that was beautiful. Thank you. In fact, I have to say just real quick, I was anxious to get here and check in to make sure that you guys knew you could count on me. And I was running up the steps, but I heard you practice this morning, and it literally stopped me. I just sort of slowed down and sank it in, let it sink in. So thank you for that. Okay, with that, I'd like to invite our first legislative speaker to the podium, Representative Shane Sandridge, who will be responding to the call of religious leaders to defend the pillar of parental rights. Representative?
Good morning, everyone. What a great morning. We are truly blessed with all the visions and beauty of God around us, living in the greatest country in the world, the greatest state in this country. We are truly blessed, and I thank you for being here, and I thank everyone for their commitment to what we're discussing today. What we are discussing today is really the base of really success successful policy. We're discussing life. We're discussing family. We're discussing values. And we are discussing God. The base that is needed for success. One thing I never want to forget, and our country should never forget, whenever you turn your back on the values that make you great, you will not be great any longer. So today, I was asked to talk about parental rights. And of course, I am a parent, and we have dealt with parental rights within the legislature last year. But what we really need to look at is the structure of the family. A man, a woman, the bond, which is paramount to a successful child. And don't just take my word for it. Look at the stats. Look at the crime statistics. Lower when there's that union. Look at the graduation statistics. Higher when there's that union. Look at how a child grows to an adult and learns how to love themselves, love others, love God. It's greater with that union. We must recognize that and never forget that. Throughout history, there has been some attacks on parental rights, and it's under attack right now. What's kind of interesting is different views on parental rights and the right for someone or the government to override the rights of the parents. See, what's kind of interesting, when I first started thinking about this, I looked at my job in the Colorado House of Representatives. Gosh, we have some really smart people as reps, big-time lawyers, professors, big-time businessmen. I mean, really some of the smartest people I've ever met. But one thing that I know is they are not smarter than you. When I mean you, I mean the community. Let me ask you this. When you elect a government official, do you elect them to tell you how your child should be educated? Do they know better than you? No. When you elect a government official, do you tell them, do you give up your right? And should they tell you what type of medical attention your child needs? Who knows better? You. When you're deciding how your child should, when, where, how they should go to church, religion-wise, who knows better, the parents or the legislature? This is something that should never be forgotten, that the government does not know better than the parent. What's kind of interesting too is I'm in the business committee as well as the finance committee. A lot of times bills come our way, and I'll say, should the government get in between a transaction between a business and their customer? We should really tread lightly between getting involved in that private transaction. Well, I look at parents and their children the same way. Should the government get involved in that relationship between the parent and the child? We should really tread lightly on something like that. So, when we look at legislatures, when we look at law, the government must look at liberty of the parent, liberty of the relationship between the parent and the child. And they must understand different parents want to raise their kids in different ways. And the legislature, the government, needs to really tread lightly before they get involved. Now, The Supreme Court, in I think it was 1925, did come out and say, move forward towards parental rights and strengthening them. They said that children are not just mere property of the state. There is a firm relationship between the child and the parents. In the 2000s, I think it was the year 2000, however, there has been some attacks, some misjudgments from the Supreme Court, not understanding that relationship between a parent and a child, not understanding the rights, not understanding liberty. So this is part where the legislature has to come in and clarify, protect parents, protect that relationship between a man and a woman, and understand what is best for our society. So let me kind of spin off to something else. Courage. Courage in politicians. There is a tone these days against Catholicism, against religion, and respecting their rights, respecting the rights of others. I was just giving an example earlier about courage and being a politician. I have this, say, a flyer, it's a mailer, that I like using the tone 100% Second Amendment, 100% pro-life, and I put 100% pro-faith. Can you believe that was the most controversial statement in that mailer, 100% pro-life? It doesn't take courage. It shouldn't have to take courage to say who you are. It shouldn't take courage. Even if we're under attack, say who you are. Let people know what you believe. If you believe in traditional marriage, say it. If you believe your thoughts, your decisions when making policy is brought to you by God, say it. Say it. There has been some controversy when I do say I make decisions through the scope of the Lord. It's in my thoughts, it's in all of my decisions. But there's a point where you have to say, that's who I am. Vote for me or don't vote for me. This is who I am. This is what I use to make decisions. This is what I use to lead. This is what I use to represent. And I'm not going to change my tone to get a couple more votes. Thank you. Thank you. Believe me, the community will recognize your courage. They will recognize what you believe in and that you stand by it. Even if there's a few people that don't believe you, they will respect your truthfulness and your strength. It's okay to love all of God's children, as well we should. But it is okay to say a masculine male, a feminine and nurturing female brought together is the best choice for a family. And it is what we all strive for and is a proper way for a successful family. That is a fact. And people will attack you. People will say bad things about you. And sometimes it feels like the devil is coming upon you. But you must fight for what you believe in. We must have more get-togethers like this. We must discuss the structure of the family. We must discuss how the government shouldn't step in and tell you how the structure of the family should change, how they believe you should live. We've already have a structure of how we should live. And it's not how the government tells you. God has already told us how to live. The government is not there to tell you how to live. God has already told you how to raise your children. The government shouldn't be there to override God. In some ways, I've also been called anti-government. Well, how can I be anti-government when I work in the legislature? But I think my job is not to form new red tape telling you how to live. I think my job is to correct the government, block the government, protect you from the government so you can live and raise your kids how you please. So I encourage politicians, let's have more speeches like this. Let's talk about God and how we make our decisions back here. And let's never forget how the true structure of the family, what we're really fighting for, and how we need to represent our community, but we also need to represent God. I want to thank everybody for their time. And I got to say this. I love these. I love you all. And let's keep fighting because we are under attack. Thank you.
Representative, thank you. As a Catholic, as a husband, as a father of 3, and we homeschool, your speech really resonated. Thank you very much for that. At this time, I'd like to invite our next speaker to the podium, Senate Majority Whip John Cooke.
Thank you, Anthony. I don't think I needed that step to stand up here and talk to you. But, good morning, everyone. My name is John Cooke, and I represent Senate District 13, which is part of Weld County. I grew up as a Baptist. I remember going to church with my mom, and I'd ask her some questions while I was growing up. I go, "Hey, Mom, why is the preacher standing in the bathtub with his nightgown on, giving that other guy a bath?" And she'd look down at me and say, "Son, that's called baptism. In Baptists, we do full immersion, and it symbolizes following Christ into the grave and then resurrection." I said, "Oh, okay, that's pretty cool." And I said, "Mom, why are we eating wafers or saltine crackers and grape juice? It's not even lunchtime, and this isn't going to fill me up." She goes, "Again, son, that's symbolism. It's symbolism of Christ, because he said, 'Do this in remembrance of me.' And the saltine is his body that he broke for us, and the grape juice, because remember, we're Baptists, so we didn't drink wine at communion. The grape juice is symbolic of the blood that he shed for us on the cross." I said, "Oh, okay, that's pretty cool, Mom." I said, "Well, what does it mean when the pastor takes off his watch, winds it, and puts it down on the podium in front of him?" She looks at me and says, "Nothing. Nothing, son, not a darn thing." Like I said, I grew up, a Baptist, and there's nothing like a Southern Baptist minister preaching hellfire and damnation. Because when they get going, there's no stopping them. And the clock at the back of the sanctuary, well, that's just an ornament. And usually ignored by the preacher and not to be glared upon by the congregation. Can I get an amen from a preacher up here? I thought I'd at least get an amen from someone. Well, I want to thank Aaron and the Pillar Project for inviting me here. It is truly an honor to be able to stand up here and speak to you all. It's great to see everybody here. everybody here today in unity and in like-mindedness. It seems more and more in this country, we're divided. There's a large chasm that's been created here in America as Americans. Between white and black and white, men versus women, women versus men, Republican versus Democrat, Roman Catholic versus Protestant, Protestant versus Protestant, Broncos versus Raiders. All right, I was just saying, make sure you guys are awake and pay attention. But today, right now, right here, there are many different congregations, many different faiths standing together as one. Today we are united. We are one in our faith, and we are united in our God. I was asked to say a few words about traditional marriage and religious liberty. Well, I can't do that without talking about some of my background. I grew up in a traditional / non-traditional family. My father left when I was 6 years old. He left my mom when she was 6 months pregnant, and pregnant with my younger sister, which means, obviously, I have an older sister. So, guys, feel my pain. My mom was a single mom before it was cool. Everyone will tell you that it's much better to have both a mother and a father in a home because it makes the family more stable, more secure, and stronger. Kids without a father get into trouble and end up in jail more than the ones where the father is present. But let me tell you, it was my faith that kept me out of trouble. It was my faith that kept me away from drugs. It was my faith that steered me to the right group of kids and away from the wrong group. It was my faith that got me through 2 days in football practice. It was my faith that got me through Army basic training. It was my faith that made me what I am today. Now, my sisters might argue that because they're the opposite political persuasion than I am. But it was my faith that made me a better man and a better father. My mom did everything to make sure it was a traditional family setting. And because of that traditional family setting, I learned about faith in God and had the religious liberty to share my faith and values with my friends. Back then, we took our Bibles to school and we witnessed to other kids. We weren't shamed or made fun of. We took a knee before every game and we prayed for each other. But now, government and sometimes society don't want us or won't allow us to have that kind of liberty and that kind of freedom. Back then, I did want to become a Baptist minister, but then while in college, I decided to go into a profession that was a little less scary, less hectic, less controversial, a little duller, less exciting, and a lot less drama, so I got into law enforcement. People have asked me, what is the most important thing you do as a legislator? And my response is, my most important job under the Golden Dome is to protect our freedom and our liberty, which includes our religious liberty. So what is religious liberty? It's what we're doing right now. We have the freedom to talk about our God and our faith without worry that someone's going to come and arrest us. While in session, it's what we do every day. In the Senate and the House, we start with a word of prayer. And we've had a lot of different denominations, a lot of different faiths come in and pray. But not everyone comes into the chamber. Not everyone comes onto the floor during the prayer. They will stay outside of the chamber, but you know what? That's their expression of religious liberty and freedom. We, this group, our communities, and our society must be ever vigilant because there are some who want to take our religious freedom and our liberty away from us and tell us that we're not even allowed to support and express our beliefs in traditional marriage. Look what happened with the Chick-fil-A founder. When he came out and said, I believe in traditional marriage, he was chastised, criticized, and demonized by those who disagreed with him. They tried to boycott the business, but because people took a stand, it failed. I drove over to Loveland because at that time Greeley didn't have a Chick-fil-A. So I drove over there to show my support for his statement on traditional value. I got over there, the line was blocks long. It took me an hour to get my sandwich. But it just shows what happens when people of faith unite and stand together. There are many cases where traditional marriage and religious liberty intersect. And unfortunately, that's demonized now. We live in a state where the heavy hand of government is targeting one person for his beliefs. This government agency was recently rebuked by the U.S. Supreme Court for their actions, but now they're doing it again. It's one thing when society discriminates against someone, but it's totally different when the government discriminates, harasses, and persecutes a person for standing up for their religious liberty. Of course, I'm talking about the Masterpiece Cake Shop case. A man who was more than willing to sell a cake to a gay couple, but because of his religious values, would not craft a cake that celebrated same-sex marriage. He was attacked by the government, by a government agency who doesn't care about his religious liberty or his First Amendment right to exercise his religious freedom. I'm going to read from his own words. Same-sex unions are not an idea I can help celebrate, and for that, something as purely personal as my deepest convictions and how I choose to exercise my own creative gifts, the government wants to put me out of business, wants me to reject the teachings of my faith, wants me to sit down with my employees, including my mother and my children, and teach them that we can't run our small business according to our faith. That's not just my government telling me what I can and can't do. That's my government telling me what I can and can't believe. They're treading way beyond my cake shop and deep into my soul. It's disgusting what the government's doing to him. There was a similar case in Oregon where a family bake shop couldn't make a cake celebrating a gay wedding because it went against their faith and beliefs. The state fined them over $135,000 and started to garnish their assets. In this case, the government violated their right to free speech, and they're exercising their religion and religious liberty and trying to put them out of business. Again, a similar situation in Washington State where the government came after a florist for standing up for traditional marriage. Ms. Stutzman, the sole owner of Arlene's Flowers in Richmond, Washington, has served and employed people who identify as LGBT for her entire career. Despite this, the American Civil Liberties Union and the Washington Attorney General claim that she is guilty of unlawful discrimination when she acted consistent with her faith and declined to use her creative gifts to celebrate the same-sex ceremony for a longtime customer. She said, "You have to make a stand somewhere in your life and what you believe in and what you don't believe in." Ms. Stutzman told CBN in an interview, "It's time I had to take a stand." God bless her for taking a stand. After hearing about Ms. Stutzman's decision in the news, the Washington State Attorney, the government, decided to take matters into their own hands and sued her. The ACLU followed closely behind. Both lawsuits attacked not only her personally, or not only attacked her business, but her personally. These types of attacks from government based on someone's religious beliefs continue to occur, and there are several more instances like these going on all around the country. And it's not just our beliefs in traditional marriage that is under attack from the government, it's our religious institutions as well. In 2012, in this very building, a bill passed out of the state Senate that would require hospitals to tell patients that any service not provided by a religious belief or moral convictions like abortions can be obtained from another hospital. This notification bill was nothing more than a veiled attempt to stigmatize religious hospitals. During debate on the Senate floor, Senator Kevin Lundberg put it this way: it's putting in place a not so subtle message that you're second class if you have moral scruples based on religious principles. Thank God, and luckily that bill failed in the House because it did come out of the Senate. Today, it's the Christian faith that is under attack by the government. Tomorrow, it could be the Jewish faith, the Muslim faith, or the Hindu faith. We in the faith community need to stand up and continue to fight back using moral high ground, and we must never be ashamed of our faith. Our faith is being challenged from every corner of society. As Thomas Paine once said, "These are the times that try men's souls," and our souls are being tried every day. So we must defend our faith and our neighbor's faith regardless of what they believe in. We must not be ashamed and we must not be afraid. Again, it's bad enough when the community of non-believers try to shame us for our faith, but when the government does it, it's dangerous. And we are living in dangerous times. We right here, right now, must commit to defending our traditional values, our traditional marriage, and our religious beliefs and our religious liberty. Because you might think, well, it'll never happen to my religion. The government's not going to try and oppress me until it's too late. I'm going to finish with a different variation of a famous poem called First They Came. And it was written by a German Lutheran pastor. First the government came for the Jew, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then the government came for the Muslims, and I did not speak out because I was not a Muslim. Then they came for the Christian, and I did not speak out because I was not a Christian. Then the government came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. You know, we can have both. We can have traditional marriage and values and religious liberty, but we just need to stand up and fight back and not back down. So I want to thank you. God bless you. God bless the state of Colorado, and God bless the United States of America.
Senator Cooke, thank you very much for that. The next pillar is the humanity of the unborn, and I'd like to call to the stand Representative Wist. Please. Did you need this thing?
Of course, I'd be preceded by Senator Cooke. I do need the podium so some people can see me. But good morning, everyone. You're looking through a blinding sun out there, but it's awesome to see you. What a beautiful Colorado morning it is. Aaron, I want to thank you for the invitation to make these remarks, and I extend my deepest thanks to each of you for being here this morning. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for the love, and thank you for the pastoral care you give to our community. Like many of you, I wear many hats. In the building behind me, I'm a legislator. By education and training, I'm a lawyer. But above all, I'm a man of my Catholic faith, a husband of 29 years, and a father of 3 amazing daughters, Connor, Abby, and Hallie. You know, time certainly flies. My youngest is now a sophomore in high school, and my oldest 2 are out of the nest, pursuing their dreams and careers. I have great pride as a parent in their integrity, in their spirituality, in their commitment to hard work, to their friendship, compassion, and service they give to each other and to others. They are remarkable young women, and yes, I'm biased, I'm their dad. But that's not to say that they are perfect, or that the formation of their characters was predictable or easy. That's never the case with children. But as a parent, you always know it's possible if we give them a chance, if we give them life. I won't forget the first time I saw my girls, and it wasn't in the delivery room. It wasn't in the nursery. It was when we went to the doctors when my wife was pregnant, and I got to see that ultrasound. Those little bodies, little fingers, little toes. Toes that would soon be covered with little booties, and fingers that would soon clasp mine. Now, seeing my children for the first time stirred emotion deep within me and my wife. That child was hope. That child was possibility. That child was our legacy. Now, I would say that experience is common for most parents when they see their children for the first time. A little life brings with it enormous possibility. To be sure, there are also worries, understandably so. Can I do this? Will I be a good parent? Can I provide for my child? Will he or she be healthy? But most of all, these little lives bring hope, and they add a depth to a parent's soul and character. It's truly transformative. All of that is lost with an abortion. When a life is extinguished, all hope is lost. And sadly, there are 2 victims in every abortion. the child who was gone, and the mother who was left to wonder what could have been. Now, to be honest with you, my friends, I don't like the word abortion because I don't like its result, and I don't like what it does. But those on the other side of this issue don't like that word either. It's not that they object to the action, but they know it's not intellectually honest. It's not morally true. So they choose other words, like right to choose and reproductive freedom. Don't be fooled by these phrases, because what every abortion means in the end is that a small life is lost, a woman's life is altered, and the moral fabric of our society is diminished. We all know firsthand the stories about women in distress who could have ended the life of their unborn child but did not. Women who, when faced with challenging circumstances and insurmountable odds, took a different path. Our Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Ben Carson, was born to a single mother on the poor side of Detroit. Through his mother's love and nurture, Dr. Carson went on to become one of the foremost children's brain surgeons in the world, improving and saving the lives of countless children. And as our HUD Secretary, he's fighting for the less fortunate by advocating for their freedom and for their dignity. Think about how worse the world would be had Dr. Carson's mother made a different choice. My friends, truth is on our side here. The unborn baby we see on an ultrasound is not a collection of cells. It's not just tissue. It is a human being. It's small, but it is a human being. The truth is that until we as a society value the least among us, we will never truly come to know the value of all human life. So what does that mean for you and for me, today and tomorrow? First, if you're a person of faith, as I am, pray. Pray that God will stir the hearts of men and women in this country to see abortion for what it is, and then simply turn away from it. Now, I can't whisper into the ears of leaders from Washington State to Washington, D.C., but you know who can? God can. So let's ask for his help. Second, we must serve one another. Thank you. Second, we must serve one another. We must reach out to women who have been damaged by abortion, who have contemplated abortion, and who are contemplating it now. More likely than not, someone in your family, someone in your office, someone in your church has been in this situation, and neither gruesome pictures or angry words will comfort their souls. Judgment will not win this battle. Only love, understanding, and compassion will heal these souls and bind these wounds. Now, most of the time, the tragic decision of an abortion is not the result of callousness or indifference. It's a result of pressure. Pressure of society, pressure of timing, pressure from the demands of life, pressure from career, pressure from a man or a spouse, pressure from family, financial pressure or strain. My friends, to say we are pro-life means that we value all life, including and especially the life of the mother. Now, we have to be prepared to walk a mile in her shoes to understand these mothers and to offer them understanding, to offer them compassion, and to offer them a better way forward. There are different and there are better choices, and we must be prepared to offer our love and our support to these women to facilitate the best choice, the right choice, the choice of life. Now, anyone that will tell you anything about me, they'll tell you that I'm not the most patient guy, and we're certainly not a patient society. With the internet and the phone, all that says, I know what I want, and I want it right now. So when we read the words of Psalm 127, where the writer says, children are a blessing from the Lord, we need to remember that he didn't say that children were maintenance free or that parenting was easy. It's not. It's hard work. And most of us know that it's hard work. But the writer did provide a parenting image for us. He wrote that like arrows in the hand of the warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. Here's the thing, in the ancient world, you made your own arrows. It took time. You had to find the wood and shape it and smooth it. And you had to create the iron and bronze and heat it and purify it and shape it. And you had to put that all together to form an arrow that would allow you to defend yourself, your family, and your community. Just like parenting takes time, changing a culture takes time. We do it one heart and soul at a time. But there are no quick fixes, and it will not happen without our diligent engagement. And it won't happen without the most effective tool that we all have, the love and the grace of God. If we pray hard, my friends, if we work hard and continue to show and teach each other to parent with patience, I am confident that our culture will come to value life, all life, as I know you do. Thank you, and God bless each of you.
Thank you, Representative Wist. It is now time to announce the recipients of the Patriot League's 2018 Friend of Motherhood Awards. The award, as well as the legislator designation of Pillar Defender, do not constitute a political endorsement. However, the award does constitute an appropriate and deserving recognition that these individuals are committed to the defense of all the Pillar principles. Recipient selection includes input from the award recipient's legislative peers, and eligible candidates are current members of the Colorado House or Senate who didn't receive the award at last year's event. 2 recipients were selected from the House chamber, and 2 recipients were selected from the Senate chamber. The Friend of Motherhood Award gives voice to the essential role that mothers play in society and illuminates how the Pillar principles uphold and are interwoven in the role of motherhood. The award reads, "We wish to express our gratitude for your defense of the humanity of the unborn. As mothers, this is not a political issue, but a reality that each of us has experienced firsthand. We are also grateful for your defense of traditional marriage as the context where a child's mother and father can provide them with the greatest chance of success in life. Finally, we thank you for defending the fundamental right of fit parents to determine what is best for their children, and for defending our religious liberties to live according to conscience, as protected by the U.S. Constitution and given to us by God." Presented by Colorado Mothers on Saturday, September 22nd, 2018, at the West Steps of the Colorado State Capitol. With that, I'd like to invite Patriot League's Vice President, Todd Bontrinker. Todd?
Thank you, Mr. Gallegos. I'd like to invite one of our 4 Colorado mothers who is here to help us today, Mrs. Wynn, to join me at the podium so that I can announce the first recipient who will ask to come to the podium to receive their award from Mrs. Wynn. The first recipient of this year's Friend of Motherhood Award calls Colorado Springs, Colorado home and represents Senate District 10. He was unable to be with us today, but Mrs. Greider is here to receive on his behalf. Colorado State Senator Owen Hill, congratulations. Mrs. Sankey, would you please join me at the podium for the announcement of the next recipient? The next recipient of this year's Friend of Motherhood Award calls Colorado Springs home and represents Senate District 9. He sends his regards as he was unable to be with us today. But Mr. Hurt is here to receive on his behalf. Colorado State Senator Kent Lambert. Congratulations. Mrs. Robertson, would you please join me at the podium? The next recipient of this year's Friend of Motherhood Award calls Monument, Colorado home and represents House District 19. He sends his regards as he was unable to be with us today, but Mr. Geithner is here to receive on his behalf. Colorado State Representative Paul Lundeen, congratulations. Mrs. Leonard, would you please join me at the podium for the announcement of the final recipient? The final recipient of this year's Friend of Motherhood Award calls Lone Tree, Colorado home and represents House District 44. Colorado State Representative Kim Ransom. Congratulations. So please join me in giving one last round of applause for the recipients of the 2018 Friend of Motherhood Awards. We hope you believe with us that the pillars are not simply ideals of society, but fundamental essentials for a culture that survives. If you do, then we stand together as pillar citizens who seek a sustainable society. These are what we refer to the English language as principles. The word principle comes from the Latin word principium, which literally means a beginning, a groundwork, a foundation. Principles, not politics. Politics change, principles do not. They are permanent, like a pillar. And so pillar citizens coming together to advance our shared principles across ethnic, socioeconomic, and religious lines because we share a common interest in the preservation of principles that are indispensable for our state and nation to survive and thrive. We're united for these principles. We refuse to let our differences and disagreements in other areas cause us to be divided for our shared interest for these principles, especially while those seeking to tear down these pillars seem to be more often than not walking in lockstep to do so. Most of us are motivated by a belief that these truths come from the Creator of mankind himself. Although we do not claim unity of faith or practice, often differing in eternally significant doctrinal positions. Most of us do, however, share the belief that God created the family and life itself, and that both are precious to him. We are pillar citizens, and we seek a sustainable society. We appeal to our fellow citizens to fully consider the ramifications of altering or removing these pillars of moral truth. If we come to a place where we no longer value family and unborn children, what kind of society will remain? Society will have become unsustainable and frankly ugly. In contrast, the pillar principles are beautiful and life-sustaining, given by God to provide the foundation for communities to flourish. The four sections of pillars behind me, no doubt, hold up what is above them, and we would be the worse off without them. We're convinced that removing the pillar principles from society would end just as disastrously. And so we look forward to continuing our work with citizens from all walks of life, persuading our friends and neighbors to the goodness of our cause, the cause to ultimately advance the pillar principles and the sustainable society that they make possible. Mr. Gallegos, would you please come and help us close out our time together?
Thank you, Todd. The Patriot League would like to take a moment and recognize a few individuals as well to express our appreciation for all the speakers who shared with us today, including those who did so with song. First, as a group, our gratitude goes out to our Pillar Project participants, the religious leaders who have made much of this possible by committing to stand together for the pillars and whose pillar letters are showcased at the back of the seating area. It is encouraging to see leading members of our society having the boldness to stand for their principles, even when they may have fallen out of popularity with certain elements of the culture. It's probably putting it lightly. We'd like to extend special thanks to the members of our advisory board, Andrew Kimberling, John Paul Leba, John Nunnally, Brian Thompson, and Fernando Zamora. In addition, our thanks goes out to other friends and volunteers who provided important support, including Andrew and Danelle, Brian and Kimberly, Bob Fox, Jack and Vicky, Joanne Winholz, and Kavika Bertholet. Finally, we want to thank every Pillar citizen who has come out today to show their support for these pillars. If you would like to get connected with us as Pillar citizens, please visit the information table behind the main seating area, where we'd be happy to assist you. You can't miss it. We conclude our time with a quote from the first President of the United States, the father of our country, George Washington, who said, "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports." He goes on to say, "In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness." We thank you all for being here. Hope you have a blessed, wonderful rest of the day.